and the family who will be meeting today was clearly, you know, given a very different...
Where does that come from? Is that just lost in bureaucracy? Is that a fear of lawsuits? Is that the callousness that can come with being in the health profession for a long time and having to deal with a lot of ill people?
I do not believe it's callousness at all.
I think a lot of times what we see with especially the specialists is a fear of failure. I think there's a fear of failure. Death, very much culturally in this culture, is viewed as a failure. You know, you didn't beat the cancer. We use that language all the time. So what is the child and the family left with if they haven't beaten the disease process? They're failing. Instead of, this is what happened to us, what is the best possible way that we can manage this with some comfort, some sense of hope? And hope looks different when you're not hoping for a cure. What you're hoping for is a quality of life, less stress in your life, pain management, symptom management, and time to be together as a family.
So communication is a key component of what the task force came up with. It said there has to be better communication among all the parties.
And better training.
Education.
You know, from day one. And education is a component. Education not only of parents and society, but of the caregivers, of the insurance agencies, of all these people. Is there a part... Is part of the motivation for the problem in this, I don't want to say greed, but the financial component?
Yes,
that's stopping this from happening?
Absolutely. And part of the problem is that because people are keeping, you know, you have the emotional component where the healthcare system continues to treat because they don't know how to say no, because they can't even talk about the word death themselves. And so how do we expect the family to talk about it? You've got the component of the insurance carrier. Now, some carriers are very, very open to doing what they call carve-outs and working with the individual hospice when that decision is made for hospice. But then you have other carriers who have become reticent and dug their feet in and will not even consider working with the hospice for these children because we don't want to take away equipment that's promoting quality of life. I have a child right now that the cost is so prohibitive and the carrier won't even consider helping us out. Now, you know, that to me is, as a provider, you know, that really threatens my hospice because I have to continue to put a lot of dollars into that, where other hospice providers will not take care of children because they're too costly.
And we're painting with a little bit of a broad brush here, and that you can't, and you said it at the beginning, you have to take each case individually.
Correct.
Because the children are of different ages, they're of different physical, emotional, intellectual development. The
Different
types of illnesses or diseases are different. And how would you say, where can we start in trying to recognize that? Because you would think that folks who have gone through medical school, who are, you know, trained physicians, who are psychologists and psychiatrists, that they would have some sense of everything I just described. So what again, I want to be clear about what's stopping them from being the heavy weight that moves us closer to this quality of life.
Feeling comfortable about talking about death and dying. You know, I met Kubler-Ross in the 70s, and not much has changed in terms of that ability for the medical profession to really be comfortable with that. And that comes down into early education and training of the medical students, of nurses, social workers, even psychologists, even specialists sometimes in this particular field of medicine are uncomfortable with dealing with the thought of dying.
Are euphemisms a bad thing? I mean, are we too cautious about the words we use? Should we be more direct? Because I get it from both sides.
Yes.
I get people that say, Steve, you shouldn't talk about a child dying. You should say life-limiting or something like that.
Well, that's the new word, new buzzword, life-limiting, life-threatening. So if we call it something else, then it isn't what it's supposed to be. We have to stop that because it's unclear to the parents. We see it with adults. Oftentimes, if you look at the New York Times article, 40% of the adults in this country never have a clear conversation with their doctor. People are dying within hours and days of being admitted to hospice anymore. That's not the intent of hospice. Hospice is not about people just dying. It's about quality of living.
It's not a place to park them at the end.
Yes.
No, and we don't have a chance to really work with the family. It's a missed opportunity when you get someone who's going to die within 2 or 3 hours or 2 or 3 days. They don't get the psychosocial support. They don't get to create legacy. They don't get to plan a memorial. They don't get to say goodbye. They don't get to do some spiritual soul searching. They don't get any of that, which we all provide. That's what hospice provides, is a really holistic care.
If you had $1 for every time you ran into someone and said, I wish I had said X before someone died. And the current system doesn't encourage that.
Right.
Unless somehow you break through or get lucky and learn about hospice or watch this program.
It's the difference between traumatic death and being able to say goodbye. And obviously something touched with you, and I get that myself because I feel that we need to have that opportunity. That's a life that was really important to us. And it doesn't happen in 24 hours or a week or when you're worried about letting go. If you can spend those final moments, our lives are crazy. I mean, this week alone, I don't even remember what I had for dinner 2 days ago. You know, but hospice is an opportunity to spend with that person and have a conversation, have a dinner where they feel good without being rushed off to a hospital. That it is a treatment option because we're aggressively, hopefully, and hospices are different. Not all hospices operate this way.
How can you tell what is, and I don't want to say a bad hospice, but a better hospice from a not as good hospice, or what ingredients you want in a hospice for your situation?
I think a lot of times it's word of mouth. I think it's really, again, it's cut back to the education. What do I really want? Have I had that conversation? Is there anybody available to have that conversation with me about what is the meaning and what do I want out of my last days, whatever they are? And is there a hospice out there that's willing to have that conversation with me, even before I sign on? Are they willing to let me know it's not a one-way street? Do I even know as a consumer that I don't have to take the hospice my doctor recommends, that I have a choice?
Mm-hmm.
And is there a thing called, well, there is called maladaptive coping pattern?
Mm-hmm.
What is that, and how does that influence what we're talking about here?
I don't like to put labels on things, and so I think that's the part of being flexible with hospice. You know, we talk about maladaptive coping pattern, but is it maladaptation, or are the people different? They have various degrees of letting go. Mm-hmm. They also have various degrees of what that person means to them in their life. I get really upset when I hear about, oh, she's old, so, you know, it's okay. Mm-hmm. No, it's not. That person's been in that family's life that much more, and so much more entwined in that family's life cycle that it's huge, and we don't acknowledge that. And when an older person dies, when a child dies, we don't acknowledge it. Just doesn't affect that one child. That mom and dad spending all their time at a hospital is taking away from the other children. They have no voices. And then when their siblings die, they have even less of a voice, because how dare you talk about your own sadness when your parents are grieving so? And as a sibling who lost a brother, I've lived my whole life with that.
Yeah. Gail, if you could start, if someone could start today, if our society could start today doing 1, 2, 3, 4 steps, could you tick them off? What should they be? Where should we be heading?
I think we need to have an open dialogue about death and dying and using those words, and stop calling it something else, because it isn't something else. We need to also have probably laws that require that insurance carriers begin to look at like open, flexible models of care that allow for hospice. But let's say if there is a family member who, you know, maybe I want to try this one more thing, that there's that flexibility to try that one more thing, because we don't want people for the rest of their life wondering if they could have saved their child because of a vitamin C infusion. We've had that experience recently where that was, you know, something what the family want. It made them feel better. Mm-hmm. You know, let's talk about death. Let's talk about the monkeys in the room and begin to have an open dialogue and require nothing less than the healthcare system beginning to have an honest, open dialogue and stop calling it something else. Because the hospice A is not about just dying. You don't have to sign on and then you can never get off and do something else. Because oftentimes we have found that people live longer. Some people actually start feeling better within their child can go for more treatment. Mm. You know, it isn't an either-or, and that's what society can do, and healthcare reform. And I'm scared what's going to happen in the next couple of years with healthcare reform. They're talking about cutting out the hospice benefit or rearranging it in a way that actually may take away more from people as they're beginning to need those services.
Gail, thank you. Gail Anderweiss,
Thank
Laura,
you so much,
stay here. Gail, I know you're going to be right off the set here. Just 1 second. More on this on In Focus, including 2 parents who know firsthand how important this care is. So stay tuned.